I got to a point where I couldn't walk. I had to use a cane. And I became very antisocial. I would see my parents maybe once every few months. I wouldn't answer any phone calls. Business was going downhill. Problems were going uphill. All of a sudden, the government started taking interest in some articles that I wrote about them, calling them out for being cheaters and liars. Started auditing my firm, and even though they couldn't find anything, because Baruch Hashem, everything was kosher, I couldn't stop them from torturing me. And they pretty much parked in my office. After they finish one audit, they bring another audit. At one point, I think it was in 2009 or 2010, I had 6 simultaneous audits. 6 audits at the same time, which only firms like Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch would have. And even they wouldn't have 6 of them at the same time. I was a tiny little firm. I mean, we were making money, but relative to the real firms, nothing. When HaShem wants you to get back to earth, He has His ways. And one of the things that I didn't realize is that the same one that brought me into this world is the same one that's doing it. He didn't forget me. He doesn't hate me. He's trying to save me. But as Shlomo HaMelech says, Ga'avat Adam tashpilenu. The pride of man will be his downfall. My ga'ava was my skill set, my ability, my money. Why should I worry about anything? HaShem gave me something to worry about. Eventually I gave in, and I said, you know what? I gotta go to this guy. God, answer my prayers. I started praying. Didn't work. I said, somebody recommended this Rav to go to Shiur Torah. All these religious people that would come to my office had no recommendations whatsoever. They just hoped that I continue to give them money. Still didn't tell me there's anything wrong with my life. So I went to Shiur Torah every Tuesday. In the beginning, maximum, I would survive 5 minutes. 5 minutes, fall asleep. Couldn't take it. It was very interesting. But there was so many sins on my soul. There's something called a klipa, a peel, a shell, that's around your soul every time you make a sin, which makes it very, very difficult for you to learn Torah. When you have a lot of sins and a lot of impurity, especially if it's wasting seed, especially if it's Chilul Shabbat, major sins, develop a shell around your soul. So you can't learn Torah like you want to. I was a Talmid Chacham and everything else. You give me a company, I can tell you exactly how much it's worth. You give me a business, I'll tell you exactly how to fix it, how to grow it, how to market for it. In that world, I was better than anybody else I knew. I'm sure somebody else better exists, I just didn't know them. Torah world, 5 minutes. Next week, 5.5 minutes. Next week, capped out at 6. So I started forcing myself to stay up. I said, you know what, I'm going to write down every single thing he says. And if you keep moving, you have to stay up. So I started writing everything he says. This was Rabbi Pinto in the city. It's very interesting, but I still didn't do tshuva. Here and there I started doing tefillin, giving some tzedakah, whatever I had. Money was running out the door faster than I can count. But anybody that needed help and I had some money, I'd give it to them. Never really meant much to me as far as money. Just like making it. Eventually the health again started deteriorating again to the point where I wanted to commit suicide. I got to my limit. Obviously HaShem knew. And that's when the first miracle happened. My mom saw me in a really, really bad condition, and your moms know exactly who you are without you saying a word. She knew that I don't have much time left. at least not psychologically. So she decides to take one of these books that she has, these phone books that she has. She collected the rabbis' names from all over the world with phone numbers, and she starts calling every single rabbi in the book. For almost 2 hours she's calling rabbis, but nobody's answering the phone today. Then she reaches a number in Israel, different country. A woman answers the phone. She asks for a certain rabbi, and the woman says, "I'm sorry, it's the wrong phone number. There's no such rabbi," in Hebrew. My mom breaks down and starts crying to this strange lady over the phone. And then Ishtabach Shemo La'ad, Hashem shows us Himself. And the woman says, "Doris," which is my mother's name. She says, "Who is this? How do you know my name?" She dialed the wrong phone number in a different country. And she got to not only a person that knows who she is, recognizes her voice, which is not very easy, by the way, especially since she never talked to each other on the phone in their life, but is also the only person that can help. And she says, "Who is this?" She goes, "This is Pnina, your niece." "How did I get to you? I don't even have your phone number. We've never talked on the phone." She says, "I don't know. But if you got to me, then obviously Hashem has a reason. Why are you crying?" She tells her the story. "My son is dying. I need some help. I need to speak to a rabbi." She says, "Why don't you talk to my brother, Rabbi Ephraim? He's a big Talmid Chacham. Although very young, he's extremely accomplished. He's written 6 books by the time he was in his early 20s. He's one of the Talmidim of Rav Ovadia. He finished the Shas 4 times before he was 20. This is somebody special. This is one of these people that's not from this world. He's the wrong generation. Why don't you talk to him?" These extra facts I added that I know about him, but she said he's a Talmid Chacham. I find out these facts later. She says, "Will he talk to me?" She goes, "Yeah, of course. You're Doda Doris from America. You're the Aunt Doris from America. Of course he's going to talk to you. You're the famous aunt from America." So she calls Rabbi Ephraim. Rabbi Ephraim is in Kollel, of course, like a Talmid Chacham that he is. But he calls her back. And she starts crying to Rabbi Ephraim. Now, I did not know that Rabbi Ephraim exists, because when I left Israel, he was still a child. He was born maybe a couple years before. He's younger than I am. I didn't know he existed. I didn't know anything about him. And he didn't really know much about me. So he asked my mom, "Does he speak Hebrew?" And she says, "Yes, he speaks a little bit. He speaks Hebrew." So, "Okay, so can I call him?" She goes, "No, he won't talk to you. He barely talks to us. Barely talks to his own family." And at that very moment, which I find out later, I call my mom for the first time in years. The real reason of why I called my mom is because I figured that if I'm going to commit suicide, I should be nice to my mom for a little while. I got to my peak. Called my mom. My mom is hysterical, crying. And she says, "Talk to him." And I said, "To who?" She's hysterical. "Talk to Ephraim." "Who's Ephraim, Bechlal? What do you want me to talk about? Why are you crying with him? What does Ephraim do that you're crying because of him?" "No, I think you can talk to him. He can help you. He can help you." I said, "Okay, anyone you want can just call me. Just stop crying." So Rabbi Ephraim calls me. He tells me the story of Judah and Tamar. I find it very interesting. I start asking him questions. Questions I had my whole life. And for the first time in my life, I get answers. But not just answers. I get answers with sources. If you ask me a question, sometimes I'll provide you a source. Sometimes I'll tell you I'll get back to you. But he was something different. It was a spot. And not only that, when I would ask a question, he'd make me feel good about it. I'd ask a question, he'd say, "Oh yeah, this rabbi asked the same question as you 852 years ago. In this book, on this page, this paragraph." And he gives me exactly what it says. I'm like, wow, how do you remember the page, Bechlal? Who thinks about the page? I thought I was smart. This guy was an alien? So then I ask another question. He goes, oh, what a great question. It makes you feel so good. I'm like, yeah, of course I asked the same question. Of course. What do you mean? I'm from Wall Street. Of course I asked the same question as the Rambam. Little do I know that I'm closer to being a monkey than the Rambam. So, oh yeah, this rabbi asked the same question 412 years ago. On this page, this paragraph, this perek. And I ask everything. So the first conversation was very nice. An hour and 40 minutes. The following week he calls me Thursday, 4 o'clock. We have a conversation for 3 hours. Same thing. Questions, answers, sources. Following week, Thursday, 4 o'clock, 5-hour conversation. Following week, Thursday, 4 o'clock, 7-hour conversation. Straight, whole time Torah. But questions about everything. Business, money, dinosaurs, science, anything you can think of. I couldn't believe it. I was getting answers. It was like a high. Something like unbelievable. The pain all of a sudden was not relevant. I didn't care. I was in pain, not pain. I was getting answers. Finally, you're finally finding the reason for even being in this world. You're finally getting answers. Getting answers for anyone that hasn't gotten answers in their life, you have to try. As HaShem says to us in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 4, if you look for me, you'll find me. But only if you look for me with all of your heart and all of your soul. You can't look for HaShem like a cat. You look behind the garbage pail, oh, he's not here, we're going to buy another one. It's not fish, you look in the aquarium, he's not there, I think maybe he died. No! HaShem is the purpose of life. HaShem is everything. You have no HaShem, you have nothing. Kill yourself to find HaShem. You have no HaShem, you have nothing. I had millions. I had nothing. With the millions in the bank, it's still having nothing. Still being depressed. Still being miserable. Every day. Reason why I worked so much is to escape the misery I actually lived.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.